Elena thinks I'm a monster.
You know what?
She's right.
Walter White is a drug kingpin. Regina Mills cursed an entire kingdom. Damon Salvatore takes lives without remorse, seemingly at all. And Dexter Morgan, well, he takes the lives of people who seemingly deserve it most. So why are these some of the most beloved TV characters in history? We witness their wicked deeds, yet still find a place in our hearts for them. Why is this? Well, it's simple. Morally grey characters have us all uttering the same thing. I can fix them. It's also the case that these are the characters that are the most complex, multifaceted, and typically have a reason as to why they are doing what they are doing. Whether it's being manipulated by their family, or being left with no other option but to live a life committing bad deeds in order to survive. Ultimately, these characters have a reason as to why they are the way they are. And the best watching experience is discovering the trauma they're carrying. And in some cases, watching them redeem themselves and slowly become the hero of the story. In some cases. Perhaps in just one case on this list. I'm going to break down some of the best morally grey characters we've seen on TV, putting them into 4 different categories and explaining why audiences love them so much and why I love them so much. Morally grey is my favourite on TV and in life. Once again, things I need to unpack, apparently. Let's begin with the corrupted hero, Walter White from Breaking Bad.
You all know exactly who I am. Say my name.
It's no surprise that Walter White would be mentioned in this video. He is arguably one of the greatest morally grey characters in TV history, despite being not particularly loving the show. I have to say it. I can't lie to you. I watched all of Breaking Bad, but it felt towards the end as though I was just making myself watch it just so I could say, hey, I watched it. Anyway, I will probably rewatch it at some point, and maybe my opinion will change, who knows. What makes Walter White so unique is that our perspective changes on him over the course of the show, but it changes almost in the opposite direction, and I will explain what I mean here, because that sounds confusing. In the beginning, Walter White is so easy to root for. He's an underpaid teacher, he's diagnosed with cancer, and he's struggling financially. His back is ultimately against a wall, and if he wants to be able to provide for his family, then he needs to kind of cash in immediately. The odds are stacked against him from the get-go. And it makes us think, what would we do if we were in his situation? The show ultimately makes us justify his decisions. Every single time he crosses a moral line, it's for a reason. Whether it's needing money, someone is threatening him, or it's simply to protect his family. We find a way every time to justify his actions. It's more or less that we're not suddenly supporting a kingpin, is that we as an audience are slowly becoming one with him. What's unique about Walter White versus other characters that I'll be listing later on is that his true intentions are slowly revealed over the course of the show. It's not simply that he becomes evil because of the situation he's in, but instead it seems as though Walter always wanted to be recognized. He wanted that power. Heisenberg wasn't created because of Walt's cancer. It actually just gave him permission to become Heisenberg. His actions only got worse throughout the course of the show, and it gives us so many reasons to not support him, to turn away and say he's gone too far this time. But instead, we always find ways to justify his actions. Whether it's when he's manipulating Jesse, allowing innocent people to suffer, or putting his family in danger, we're still there, watching on, supporting him, and ultimately rooting for him. Ultimately, it's because we've spent so much time following him, so much time in his perspective. It's almost as though we're in his head. Walter ultimately goes from powerless to one of the most powerful characters, which makes him so captivating to watch. He becomes the version of himself that he always wanted to be. Now, one of the most important lines in the show reveals all of this to us. At the end, Walt finally admits, "I did it for me." No longer claiming it was for his family, for survival, no, he actually liked everything he was doing. Walter White isn't a great morally grey character because he's good and bad. He's a great morally grey character because he exposes how easily audiences will excuse terrible behaviour when they understand someone's motivations. It says more about us than it does about him. Next up, we have the redeemed villain. So of course, we once again have to discuss Regina Mills from Once Upon a Time.
I don't know who you are, but why don't you go back to where you came from? Where was I?
I promise there will come a time that this show will not be mentioned again on this channel, but as of right now, it's a hot topic of conversation in my head. When it comes to morally grey, no one does it quite like Regina Mills, aka the Evil Queen. For those unfamiliar with the show, Regina is the evil queen who curses her kingdom and sends everyone to Storybrooke, Maine, ultimately stealing their memories and their happy endings. I don't know what the biggest curse is, going to Maine or not getting your happy ending. I guess they're one and the same really, isn't it? What's truly fascinating about Regina isn't that she's evil, it's that despite what she does, who she hurts, the lives she has destroyed, the audience still wants to see her be redeemed. I should specify that Regina isn't just a menace. She is pure evil at times, ripping out hearts, destroying lives, and cursing kingdoms because she can't let go of her hatred. The woman can hold a grudge. You definitely don't want to be on her bad side. Although at times, sometimes I think I'd love to be on her bad side. The lengths in which Regina will go to survive are extreme. Yet we're rooting for her the entire way. Not to be evil, but to mend her ways. It is discovered over time that Regina was good. She started that way, led down a dark path by her mother Cora, after Cora crushes, literally, the heart of the man Regina loves. And, of course, Snow White was the one to blab about it, which is why Regina hates her so much. You can imagine that kind of pain would leave you with a lifetime of trauma. It doesn't excuse what Regina does, but it certainly explains how she got to a point where she wants to destroy everything in her path. For a long time, it seems Regina is incapable of love, of empathy, of being good. I mean, she spends a large part of the time without a heart in her chest, locked away in a box. Despite all that, she always has love for her son, Henry, the one person she cares for the most. Her love for Henry is the first crack in the evil queen persona. Without her love and fierce devotion to him, there's a chance audiences wouldn't have stood by her side, seeing the good that was inside of her all along. But here is the thing, there was no linear path for Regina towards redemption. Every time she took a step forward, she also took 2 steps back. She retreated back to old habits, pushing people away and seeking revenge. But that is exactly why her redemption felt earned by the end of the show. Regina didn't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be good. She fought for it. She struggled, she failed, but she kept choosing to try again. And that's what makes her feel human. That's what allows us to connect to her. Like Emma Swan said to Regina when she saved her from the darkness, you've worked too hard to have your happiness destroyed. This is a moment that hits hard for viewers because it's our first time witnessing someone risk their own life for the former evil queen. She was redeemed in the eyes of the viewers and the characters. By the end of the series, Snow White crowns Regina the good queen, and it feels well deserved. Not because we've forgotten what she did leading up to this point, but because we've spent seasons watching her fight against the worst parts of herself. The evil that was trying to claw its way out. I mean, we quite literally watched her fight herself. Regina versus the evil queen. And what did she do? She tore their hearts apart and pieced them together so they both had good inside of them. Regina isn't a great morally grey character because she's redeemed. She's great because she makes us believe that redemption is possible in the first place, even for someone who once seemed beyond saving. She represents something we all want to believe. That our worst mistakes don't have to define us forever. We can all get our happy endings. Now, a very popular morally grey character up next. This is what I like to call the charming monster, Damon Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries.
Elena thinks I'm a monster. You know what? She's right.
Damon may very well be one of the best examples of morally grey, begging the question, why do we forgive people we maybe shouldn't? Damon is a vampire desperately in love with Elena Gilbert, who only has eyes for his brother, Stefan. When we first meet Damon, he is essentially the villain. He takes people's lives, manipulates them, thrives in chaos, and acts without any kind of remorse, seemingly. Despite all that, within a few seasons, the majority of viewers are rooting for him to succeed. Now, why is that? It's not because he's good, it's because he becomes an understandable person. One of the reasons audiences love Damon, well, he's an honest king. He doesn't pretend to be better than he is. While other characters try to be the heroes, Damon is honest about being selfish, and honestly, well, it's an attractive quality to have. We hate a liar. The more we learn about Damon, the more we begin to understand his actions and motivations, like the majority of morally grey characters. He is a deeply wounded soul, constantly compared to his brother, rejected by his love, and believes his soul is fundamentally broken. Like many of the characters mentioned in this video, it doesn't excuse his actions, but it does reframe how we perceive him. Instead of seeing the villain, we see someone who is carrying around a busload of pain, someone who is hurting. As an audience, we are often easy to forgive when we understand the reasoning behind bad behaviour. An important element to all of this as well is that Damon is the more interesting character between him and his brother. Stefan is good, responsible, selfless, but let's be honest, he's a little bit boring, in my opinion. Damon is complex, and audiences would much rather see complexity over goodness. Elena sees it too. She believes there is something worth saving in Damon's complex personality. She believes in him before anyone else does. And in turn, we begin to believe in him too. We want to believe he is not beyond redemption, that there is humanity inside of him. To circle back to the charismatic monster point, here is a question. If Damon looked different, if he wasn't so funny, so attractive, so charming, would you forgive him so easily for the things that he's done? Sit with that for a minute. Most likely you wouldn't, because we often judge characters on how they make us feel, not what they've done. And a charismatic villain, well, they'll always be slightly more forgivable than a boring hero. Let's be honest. And finally we have the vigilante, which of course has to be Dexter Morgan from Dexter.
Hello, Dexter Morgan.
Dexter is one of the most unique morally grey characters, and it's simply because he lives life by a code. Outside looking in, he is a villain, of course. He stalks people, he ends lives and hides bodies, so why do we root for him? Well, it's because the genius of Dexter is the fact that he doesn't take the lives of innocent people. He only targets those who have escaped justice. This essentially creates a moral loophole for the audience. We know what he is doing is wrong, but is he justified in his actions because he is ridding the world of bad people? That is the question. More often than not in crime dramas, we're rooting for the police, the ones that will serve justice in the correct way, and we see the bad guys behind bars. Instead, in Dexter, we're actively rooting against them, feeling utterly stressed when it feels like they're zeroing in on Dexter because we realize quickly we don't want him to get caught. This show totally flips your moral compass. What makes him so unique isn't that he's driven by power or greed. He seeks connections. He actively wants friends, family, love, and spends most of the show believing he's incapable of feeling normal human emotions. And as an audience, we spend the show believing that there is more to him than the monster he believes he is. Unlike other villains, Dexter does have restraint, to a point. He battles his dark urges, channeling them, controlling them, or at least trying to. The struggle makes him more relatable than most other characters, even if the stakes are far higher. A big part of what makes him such a great morally grey character to root for is the idea of wish fulfillment. Now, bear with me here. Everyone has had a moment of saying that person deserved consequences. Dexter actively acts on those impulses. He's essentially a fancy version of justice, someone that punishes people the legal system couldn't seem to stop. But the show does ask a deeper question. What happens when one person decides they get to determine who lives and who doesn't? Because despite his code, he's still judge, jury, and executioner. Dexter Morgan isn't a morally grey character because he takes lives. He's morally grey because he takes the lives of the people deemed deserving of it. However, the show consistently reminds you that justice and revenge aren't always the same thing. The thread through here is this. Walter White tests how far we'll follow someone. Regina tests whether we believe people can change. Damon tests how much charisma can excuse wrongdoings. And Dexter will test whether our morals change when the victim deserves it. These make for some of the most interesting morally grey characters in TV history. They're complex, they're battling against themselves a lot of the time, and we want them to succeed because we believe there is redemption. We believe there is a reason for the bad things they do, but ultimately it's because we also want to root for the underdog, the villain who is considered doomed, a monster of sorts, yet we have hope there is so much more beneath the surface. But more than that, morally grey characters don't just reveal who they reveal who we are. How we justify their wrongdoings, how badly we want to see them change, how charisma can influence our judgment, and how we abandon our principles when justice feels personal. Perhaps that's why morally grey characters remain some of the most compelling. They don't just challenge our perception of them, they challenge our perception of ourselves. Where would we draw the line? Every time we think we know the answer, we find ourselves rooting for the villain anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know who your favourite morally grey character is, and I will see you in the next video.